Hey there, welcome back to Boards 3D. I'm Dr. Stephen Strange, and today we're making Eye of Agamotto. So before we get started on the Eye of Agamotto today, please keep in mind that this video has been quite a long time in the making, not because of the difficulty, but because of my procrastination. So you'll see some videos taken from my old GoPro, so please excuse the quality, but other than that, I hope that you enjoyed the video anyway. As always, when starting a project involving a 3D printed object, I started by sanding the piece until it was smooth enough for my tastes. I don't usually look for a completely smooth finish. I like having the print lines barely visible sometimes. I think it gives the piece character, but of course this isn't to everyone's tastes. It is important to make sure that small bits of supports are removed. Sometimes they can be hidden under some other part of the print, but I always try to remove all of them. It's super satisfying to pull them out anyway. This is my spraying jig, and basically it's just a couple of pieces of wood slapped together with a lot of holes which I can hang 3D printed parts or, parts for spraying. Like, they have to be, small parts. You can't hang really heavy stuff. I'll be using fishing line because I can't find anything else to use at the moment, and I think this will do just fine. So let's get to it. Now, finally got this all set up, and we're going to give them a couple of base coats. I want the final color to be this brass kind of color. I bought this by mistake ages ago because I thought it was gold, but it's actually brass, so I'll use it for this project. But first, instead of using that as a base coat, I will be using matte black. Give it a good shake. Let's get the filter going so that we don't breathe in a lot of fumes. Okay, so I think I did a bit of a thicker coat on the smaller bits because I was spraying from too close, but I think I missed the spot. There we go. It'll be fine. Now this is why I hate using fishing line, because it basically moves everything around and it's not ideal. But it is the only thing I have at the moment, so it will have to do. Now there are several things I can do to help them dry faster. I could take them out in the sun, and basically in our sun at this time of year, basically it's going to melt, not melt, but make it all wavy and wobbly and blah. That's a technical word, look it up. Else I could take a hair dryer and blast a bit of warm air, not hot, it should be warm, on them, and the paint dries fast. That way it speeds it up. Now luckily my heat gun has two settings. On the first setting it goes up to about 50 degrees Celsius, which after a bit of looking up on the internet, which I did ages ago, It's basically about the same temperature of a hair dryer, and I've used it before. It works just fine. It's good to keep it moving. So okay, they seem to have dried up already. The last two bits might be a bit wet, so we'll wait for those. But in the meantime, I think I can actually start working on this one. Yep. Completely dry. It's incredible, it only took like, what, a couple of minutes. So, here's the thing. This part is going to be fixed on this plate. Now, I didn't spray on the underside because I want to put glue there so that it will fit. However, it's not that I forgot, but I need to weather the inside as well after I spray it and give it a base color. So that would be incredibly difficult to do, to try and get a paintbrush in there between all these things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray it and I'm going to weather it, and after I'm done with all of that, I'm going to sand these bits over here so I can put glue properly, or at least sand a couple of bits around those knobs which are used for registration. So yeah. I'm going to spray the inside of this bit silver, brilliant silver or chrome, I think this is silver, basically to reflect as much light as possible, because on the inside I'm going to put a green LED to simulate the time gem. I may also try to make my own crystal, which, fingers crossed, will go well, but we'll see. I will go over it with a brush at the end and make this the same color as the other ones. And this brass color is very similar to an old gold which I have plenty of as an acrylic, so we'll see how this goes. Okay, so all the pieces are done and dried from the spray painting. I think it is acrylic spray. Yep, it is acrylic spray paint. So basically what I'll be using now are some acrylic paints which I have from my old model making. Well, model making was Warhammer 40k days. In fact, I have a mixture of, you know, Citadel, I have some Vallejo, some Game Color. I don't know who these are from. Oh yeah, from Vallejo as well. Anyway, so we got some different size brushes. We got a jar of water to rinse our brushes in, napkins or paper to dry our brushes in, and a piece of gloss as well. Got some rub and buff. I'm not sure whether I will use this, but it's good to have it on hand nonetheless. Palette and some extra colors which I'll probably not use, so put them to the side so that I have a bit more space. Okay, so here's the disclaimer. I have done a number of props over the years, especially since I got my 3D printer. Now, I am not an expert. I do things my way. It's not necessarily the best way to do things. I just do it in the way it makes sense in my mind. But I got a lot of tips from, obviously, Adam Savage, who hasn't, and from Brittany Doran of Punished Props. So yeah, I have links to those channels down below, so if you're interested and you want to get started into prop making as well, you can also visit them to get a good idea of what prop making is about. I like to dab quite a bit of color in the recesses, and then with a piece of towel, paper towel, you wipe from the tops. That gives it a good contrast. I don't know whether the color on the GoPro is good enough, but from my preview on the phone, I can see that there is a bit of shading difference. So this is the one, the bottom one is the one which I haven't done yet, and the top one is the one that I did. So I think that will work out just fine. thing. You don't need to put a lot of paint on your brush. You just need to cover the recesses. It's okay if you go on the ridges. As I said before, we're going to wipe most of it off anyway. So it's okay. The trick about it is to make sure that the paint underneath is completely dry, or at least as dry as possible, and to not let the new paint dry, because otherwise it will be a bit difficult to remove. Now, these are acrylic paints. You can, you can just wash them off with water. Maybe dilute them a bit, but I'm a bit lazy when it comes to painting. It's not my favorite part of building stuff. So what I'm going to do here is, I've got these small lines, these recesses in here. I'm just going to fill them out with black acrylic and see what that looks like. I mean, if we muck it up, we can always just respray it and see what happens from there. I mean, it's not really such a big deal. Another thing to keep in mind is that even though I really enjoy prop making, I do not have a billion colors at my disposal, so I have to make do with what I have. And that's fine, honestly, because it starts putting me in the mindset of working around the tools I've got instead of finding an excuse to get a new tool, which I do find excuses to get new tools, but I always try to use the tools that I have, because it fosters this sort of discipline, and that discipline can be translated into any craft that you do, whether it is prop making, woodworking, 3D printing, whether it is welding, metalworking, whatever it is. Working around the tools you've got is one of the best ways to learn how to use the tools you have, rather than to find an excuse sort of to go around the problem. Now, I like the black outlines. They make nice contrast. I think that's okay, that looks nice. Okay, so on to the next parts. This is awesome! I picked up some silicone for a mold from a local arts and crafts shop. The silicone needed equal parts of A to B, making it extremely easy to mix just by eyeballing it. The best way to mix this kind of rubbery silicone by hand is to roll it between your palms and then fold it, repeating the process several times until there are no streaks visible and the color is uniform. I shaped the mixed silicone into a small mound and pressed the infinity stone, which I had just printed, pressing gently from the sides to make sure that no air bubbles were caught in the mold. After the molding, I put on a fresh pair of gloves and measured the approximate amount of resin that I would need to fill the mold. The resin I used is by Resin Art and it mixes in a 1:1 ratio, again making it simple to work with. I also bought an ink with which I could tint the resin, so I added that to the part A and mixed it in well. The easiest mistake to make when casting resin is to not mix it well, so make sure that you do. Also remember to work in a well-ventilated area. I had the garage door open and there was a nice breeze, but if you don't have access to a ventilated space, use a face mask. Following that, I poured the resin into the mold, as cautiously as I could, so as not to spill too much. Finally, I set in a green LED in the resin. I cut 3 equal lengths of black cord that I had in the shop and burned the edges together. I also put a drop of CA glue to keep them from pulling apart. I then braided the cord, which I was going to use as a necklace string. I finished the cord in the same way, burning the frayed edges and CA glue. To light up the time jam, I needed some basic electronics. I wanted to put a C2032 battery in the eye itself, but that meant that I needed to sand down the interior because it was too snug otherwise. I used my trusted Dremel to get the job done. Once that was done, I drilled 2 holes to pass a wire through the back of the holder. I cut several lengths of wire and stripped their ends. I soldered the exposed wires and soldered them to a tiny switch. I passed the wires through the holes I drilled and stuck the switch in place using hot glue. At the time I didn't notice the camera's battery ran out of juice, but here's a pretty simple diagram of how the electronics work. It's basically a battery, LED and switch connected together to form a very basic circuit. The last thing that I needed to do was to attach the cord to the eye itself. I mixed a small amount of 5-minute epoxy, dripped it into the cord holder and stuffed the cord inside. With that, the Eye of Agamotto was done. So, having finished the Eye of Agamotto, it's so awesome. Little LED really does the job. This project was an exercise of a lot of different skills and techniques, really. There's 3D printing involved, so you need to know exactly how you're going to 3D print your object and which orientation to put it to make sure that it's printed in good quality. There's also mold making and resin casting, which was my first experience in resin casting, and it was such a great experience, really. It's so simple to use as long as you mix the resin together properly. Sticking an LED in there was just, my personal preference. You don't have to if you're going to make this, but the gem that lights up in the middle is quite awesome. You'll have to forgive the shoddy electronics. It was one of my first, well, it's not my first time, but it was I haven't soldered quite a lot, so I'm not that experienced in electronics, so I had to jam everything inside there. Thinking back about it now, next time I'll probably modify the file to make it house the electronics easier. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making this project, and it's truly been awesome. It's such an awesome result. I'm very happy with it. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of it and maybe your feedback, what I could do better next time. And if you're new here, welcome to the channel first of all, and you can click the subscribe button to keep up to date with all my projects. As always, you can visit boards2d.net for all my social media links as well as project write-ups. And as always, just as I have been inspired by other makers out there to go out in the garage and make something, I hope that you too can go and make something, because everyone is a maker.